Hello, everybody. This is Eliakim Cohen back with Torah Through Truth, Truth Through Torah. This is episode 19 of our 23-part Hebrew letter series. And today we're doing a very, very special letter. It's the Tzadi, right? Tzadi, Kuf, Resh, Tzadi. It's the 18th letter of the Hebrew AlefBeis. The most unique part about this letter is probably its shape and the fact that people don't know how to pronounce it. There's actually a disagreement. Is the letter Tzadi or Tzadik? Tzadik means righteous. So, of course, we're going to get into all that. I don't know if I've been as excited to do a letter because this episode is sponsored by someone who messaged me the other day. And he said something to me that literally just made me beam with simcha, with joy. So his name's Zachariah. Sounds like a great guy. We talked for, probably 10, 15 minutes. So he told me he came across one of my lectures, and I believe it was the Zion, right? Because his name is Zachariah. He said he listened to the lecture and he was stunned at how much information was just like jam-packed into just one letter. He said, I can't believe all the divine aspects of the letter. So he said, I started watching more of the lectures. I think he watched Gimel and a few of the other ones. And his reaction was the exact thing that I mentioned in every episode. I started doing this 23-part series, right? The 22 Hebrew letters, and then all 5 of the final letters we're going to do for the last episode, God willing. The reason I decided to do the Hebrew letter series was that, unlike every other language, every aspect of the Hebrew letter, from where it falls in the AlefBeis, the shape of it, the meaning of it, the numerical equivalent of it, the letters that, are before and after it, all of them are perfect. There's no coincidences. The goal of this was to prove to everybody that Hebrew is a divine language. It is the divine language. The Torah was not given in English. It wasn't given in French. It wasn't given in Russian or Arabic or Spanish. It was given in Hebrew. When Hashem created the world, he created the world in Hebrew. An A could have been a Q, could have been a G. They don't matter. They don't mean anything. They're just symbols. There's nothing inherently unique or special or holy about any other language other than Hebrew. Aleph had to be the first letter. It had to look like it did. It had to have a numerical value of 1. And I think you're going to learn with the Tsadi just how special the 18th letter is. Well, what's 18 in Judaism? Chai, right? Chai means life. So again, there's no coincidences. Tsadi could not have been the 17th letter, could not have been the 19th letter. So he chose Tsadi because, we're talking, and he said, I'd like to sponsor a lecture. I said, amazing. He said, what letters are left? He said, my grandfather just passed away. His name was Yitzchak, and I know that the Yud's taken. I said, why don't you do Tsadi? The letter that stands out the most in Yitzchak is the Tsadi. It's a very, very powerful letter. I think it probably has the most unique shape of any of the 22 Hebrew letters. So this is for his grandfather. He just passed away. Yitzchak Rachamin ben Ezra Simcha. And I said, you want to write a little something about him? This is what he said. And I find this to be very beautiful. Yitzchak was a proud and loyal Jew, always happy with what he had, and was always smiling and bringing light to those around him. Honestly, think about what you're going to want people to say about you when you pass away, God willing, at 120. Oh, yeah, nobody worked harder, building computers than Yonatan. Nobody was a better baker than Shirley. I would like people to say about me that I was a proud and loyal Jew, always happy with what he had, and was always smiling and bringing light to those around him. The fact that Yitzchak Rachamin merited to have a grandson who would honor his life and his legacy and uplift his neshama in the next world by sponsoring a Torah lecture on the letter that basically is the tzaddik. Tzadi and tzaddik are directly related. I'm very, very excited to do this lecture. I put a lot of time into this to make this something very special. And hopefully this will be a very big schus and an aliyah for the neshama of his grandfather, and a big, big bracha for Zechariah. Okay, another reason I'm very excited today, it's Friday, right? TGI Friday. Shabbos is just right around the corner. Also, it is the yortzeit of the Shinova Rebbe. So the Shinova Rebbe was the oldest son of the Sanzer Rebbe, and when I lived in Netanya, I davened every day at the Sanz Hotel. Have a great kesher with all of the people in Sanz, just a wonderful Hasidic group. But my great-great-grandfather was actually raised by the Shinova Rebbe. So every year, my cousin and I, we get together on the 6th of Teves, which is today, and we do something special. So last night, right when the yortzeit started, he and I did, it's on my wall right now on the Facebook wall, a 45-minute live video sharing some Torah or sharing some words for the Divrei Yecheskel. This is always a very, very special day for my family. He sent my great-great-grandfather to America from Poland with 9 other men to basically build a community. My great-great-grandfather was an 18th generation shochet. That's probably why I like meat so much. Okay, let's get into the Tzadi. Again, some of you are saying, wait, I thought the letter was tzaddik. No, it's actually tzadi. But the fact that there is an actual machloikis, right? That there's a disagreement shows there's something unique about the letter. Because tzaddik means righteous, right? When you say to someone, oh, he's such a tzaddik, right? He's so righteous. So the letter clearly has this unbelievable connection to the word righteous, to righteousness. But it's actually pronounced Tsadi. We'll get into that in a second. Okay. I have a little bit of a cough, so I'm going to try to get through this without coughing. We always do a little overview. Tzadi is the 18th letter of the Hebrew AlefBeis. It's pronounced like pretzels, with a numerical value of 90. Has a special final form, right? There's a regular Tzadi, and then there's a final Tzadi. So again, this is episode 19. Someone has already sponsored episode 20, which is going to be Ayin. Then there's only 3 left. There's 21, 22, and 23. There's Ches, Kuf, and the final letters. So if anyone's interested in sponsoring those, get them while they're hot, because once this is done, the letter series is done forever, and it will just be replayed, God willing. I'm really gonna push this, because the reaction that I got from Zechariah is the exact reaction that I want to get. And I put a lot of time into every single letter, because I don't know who's watching for the first time. The goal is that everyone watching every single one of the lectures for the first time is just blown away, and it gets them to what? To go to eliakim.com and watch all the lectures. Building my own website right now. All the lectures I've done are on the YouTube channel. Watch them all. They're all very, very powerful. The goal of everything is to what? Is to show people, just as this cup clearly did not blow up in a plastic factory in Boston, it had a designer, it had a purpose, it has a unique shape. There's some seichel, there's some logic and reason and purpose for this cup. So too, it would be really, really stupid to think that God created you with 190 trillion connections in the brain, 2 million things that make the eye work, so that you can sit around all day, work for 8 hours, come home and watch Netflix, go out on the weekends, rinse, wash, repeat for 80 years, die, and that's it. Okay. Tzadi symbolizes concepts like righteousness, clearly, from the word tzaddik, a fishing hook, hunting. It's one of the letters with a distinct final shape in Hebrew writing, along with others like the nun and the mem, and the kaf, and the pei, often representing the idea of a righteous person or a hunter. A key association with Tzadi, of course, is Tzadik, right? I mean, some people think that's actually the name of the letter, but it's not. It's actually Tzadi. One of the reasons is, what's the very next letter? Tzadi Kuf Resh. So it's like Tzadi Kuf, Tzadik. That's how it sort of got blended together. The name itself means fishing hook in Hebrew, and it's relating to hunting and desire. You go out in college and, those guys are on the hunt, right? Hunting, desire, right? You're not going out hunting to do what? You're trying to go out, trying to kill to get your meat, right? The form of it looks like what? It looks like a person bent over in need or humility, right? So many of the Hebrew letters are bent to show what? Again, every aspect of the Hebrew, language is divine. But if you just look at the shape of the letters, you'll see so many of the letters have something in the letter that's bent. What's bending? You bend your will in what? In submission to who? To Hashem, your creator. The Hebrew word for charity is what? Tzedakah. Comes from the same root, emphasizing what? Righteous giving. Giving with a smile. A suggestion I make to everybody. When you give tzedakah, ask the person you're giving tzedakah to also give you a blessing so that they don't feel lesser than. They feel needed. They feel important. They feel special. They feel like they're giving something to you, not just the other way around. It appears in Hebrew texts relating to righteousness and concepts linked to a righteous person or a tzaddik, right, who safeguards life. Like who? Like the Shinover Rebbe, who's your sites today. In modern Hebrew, the frequency usage of the letter Tzadi is 1.48%. One of the least used letters in Hebrew. All right, here's something beautiful I found. Tzadi is associated with the quality of righteousness. In the 119th Tehillim, Psalms, the famous one that's the longest, Tzadi is the header on the verse that talks about righteousness. The word Tzadi has a form that describes a righteous person, a tzaddik. The Rambam defines a tzaddik as someone whose merit surpasses his iniquity. In other words, someone who has found a balance in virtue. In the Hasidic tradition, the title tzaddik is applied to someone who reaches a state of holiness where they experience the love and awe of Hashem without material temptation. Such a person serves as a vehicle or a merkava, a body of light in the world. It's also believed that the world is not destroyed, meaning it's able to continue because of the presence of these tzaddikim in the world. Now, the two forms. The Hebrew letter Tzadi has a small form, the one that you see in every position in a word other than at the end, and a big final form, which is at the end of a word. Both meaning side or hunt, symbolizing righteousness, and a person bent over to help others, with mystical links to the creation, humility, and Mashiach. The final form signifies a spiritual elevation, like a righteous person returning from the depths, connecting to the concept like Mashiach's name, Tzemech, Tzedek, and divine contraction, Tzimtzum. We'll get to all that. The normal form appears at the beginning or middle of a word, and it's often associated with the concept of side or hunt, right? Tzad, right? Like you say, Tzad Sheni, the second side, the other side. The final form is used only at the end of the word, representing a higher spiritual state, like a person who has fallen and then returned. Like who? Like a Baal Tshuva. Someone like me that didn't grow up observant and then said, you know what? I'm not living life correctly. It's time to start following the Torah how Hashem wants us to. So it represents a Baal Tshuva, someone that returns to Judaism, or a righteous person, a tzaddik, who's reached what? Spiritual perfection. The letter is linked to tzedek, justice, and tzaddik, righteous person. See again, Hebrew is so, tzedek means justice, tzaddik means righteous. What's the only kind of justice? Righteous justice. Symbolizing faith, humility, and service to Hashem. The letter's shape is basically a nun with a yud, suggests a soul descending into the world, but connected to God through the yud. A concept tied to divine contraction, which is called tzimtzum, needed for creation. Meaning what? Hashem had to shrink himself to make the world. Mystically linked to the Mashiach, whose name is connected to Tzemech Tzedek, sprouting righteousness. Why the big and small forms? The variation reflects spiritual journeys. The small form is the everyday righteous person, while the final large form shows one who has experienced spiritual depths and returned, elevating the world. What does it say? The righteous person falls, 7 times, but always gets up, always ascends higher. Okay, we always like to do something a little more mystical to start the lecture. So I found some really beautiful connections with the Tzadi. The Tzadi represents the tzaddik. You'll hear this a lot in the episode because clearly the fact that some people don't even know how to pronounce the letter shows that there's like an unbelievable bond between Tsadi and tzaddik that I don't think any other letter in Hebrew has a deeper connection to a certain word. So much so that the word itself, for a lot of people, has almost been flipped. I mean, you ask people, what's the 18th letter of the Hebrew language? A lot of them will say tzaddik, even though it's actually tzaddi. So the tzaddi represents the tzaddik, the person who is just, like we said, tzedek, right? Justice, as well as the righteousness of who? Of the Creator. The tzaddik strives to be true, loving, justice, and fairness, straight and fully honest with their conscience. The idea is that the world is broken, so every person must face their own evil and learn to what? To restore it. The literal meaning of tzadi is a fishing hook, right? Righteousness and humility are the two defining traits of the tzadi, right? Which is why the letter itself is bent. Tzadi is a very, very unusual. I don't think there's another letter that's more uniquely shaped than the tzadi. Again, if you don't know what the tzadi looks like, just pause this and Google tzadi. You'll see it's a very, very unique, unusual shape letter. I think probably the most unique of all the letters. It's a nun. The tzadi is a nun with a yud, literally like riding on top of it. This signifies that the essence of the Creator who animates all matter guides and dwells within the one who is humble. Right? Hashem is represented by the Yud. Because what? Because it's the smallest letter. It's the only one suspended. Dwells within one who is humble, as symbolized by the Nun. Right? The Nun stands for what? Nofel. Right? That's why Nun is the 14th letter. It's directly in front of the Samech, which means somech, to lift. Right? So the Nun falls, and then the letter directly after that is the Samech that what? Lifts back up. Again, every aspect of the Hebrew letter is just that. This has been the most mind-blowing part of doing every single, episode. This signifies that the essence of the Creator, one who animates all matter, guides and dwells with the one who is humble, as symbolized by the Nun. Another key trait is hiddenness. The tzaddik is hidden because they appear to be as an ordinary person despite their great spiritual stature. There are so many examples of such righteous people that the world never knew about in Judaism. They were janitors. They were, someone that worked, at a local store. Just, they were a peddler. They were a water carrier. Yet they were such holy people. They were what? There's a term called hidden tzaddikim, right? There's 36 in each generation. The letter tzadi is related to justice, tzedek, and to doing justice. It's also related to taking a position in life without which the great magnet of day-to-day life can eventually determine fate. It suggests an alternative and a choice in time that we have between a path filled with grace or a dead-end road that eventually leads to destruction. Life is a choice. You can go down the righteous path. You could go down the just path. You can go down the spiritual path. Or you could go down the path of basically 99.9% of the world, which is just me, I. Let's jam as much, fun into life as possible. Die, not much to show for it. The letter Tsadi contains, apart from justice, a subpoena, tzav, right? And a command, tzivoy. Justice is related here to the price of choices we make. The subpoena relates to the open invitation to make choices. There's one thing that Hashem cannot do, right? Now, I teach my son, Hashem is here, Hashem is there, Hashem's everywhere, and Hashem could do everything. But that's actually not true, because we have free will. Hashem cannot force me to decide that today I want to either learn Torah or go out and eat bacon. That is 100% my choice. It's the only thing in life, that is my choice. If I want to be rich or poor, I can do my part, but that guarantees nothing. There's lots of people that went to Harvard that are broke. There's lots of really, really stupid people. Just look at, TikTok that are multi-millionaires and have an IQ of like 4. Bechira, free choice. That is the one thing Hashem cannot stand in the way of. That's the one thing Hashem has no power over. He can help you, of course. It says specifically, if you want to go down the righteous path, Hashem will help you. And I've seen this in my life. When I wanted to be wicked, when I wanted to do, to be selfish, it was always made easy for me. Anywhere I went, I came to Judaism through a high-speed car chase on cocaine, right? That's how I became observant. Wherever I was, I always was around people that had cocaine, no matter where I was. I could go to a new city, a new state, I'd ask the person next to me, boom, he had it. Why? Because Hashem would put me in situations. He helps you down the path you want to go. Now, God willing, I want to be on a righteous path. So there's always just, you see the way that Hashem guides you, but he cannot make the choice for you. Justice is related to the price of the choices we make. The subpoena relates to the open invitation to make these choices, and the total of all the choices in life summons the person to where he or she ought to reach at the end of his life, right? That's when you will find out where you are going in the next world, which is the eternal world. What a shame. So many people waste 70, 80 years, thinking that this life is it. This is the be-all, end-all. And then they spend the next eternity, realizing, gosh, I spent all that time trying to save up to get that Lamborghini. All I had to do was learn 5 minutes of Torah a day and look where I'd be in the next world. But you blew it. This is the only... Why was the Vilna Gaon crying? Let's talk about tzaddikim. Talk about a tzaddik. The Vilna Gaon was crying before he died. His Talmidim asked him, why are you crying? If there's anyone ever that's going to go to Olam Haba, that's going to go to heaven, it's going to be you. He held up his tzitzis and he said, look at how easy it is to do mitzvahs here. Hashem made the easiest system. Some people understand it. Some people spend their entire life just trying to earn mitzvahs. Some people understand, I have to give tzedakah money anyway. So what is the best bang for the buck that's going to earn me the most merit? Clearly, donating to Torah. Torah that what? Is trying to get people what? Back to Hashem. Some people understand this. Other people what? Oh, I'm going to donate to get my name on the wing of that hospital. All the choices we make in life, all the actions we do in life, summons the person to where he reaches at the end of his or her life. Life is in essence a shopping spree. I use this example a lot. Imagine you have a shopping spree. You can go to Costco, right? Costco, you're such an amazing, Zachari, you're such an amazing customer. We're giving you a 60-second shopping spree. Here's the rules. Anything that you touch in the 60 seconds goes into your cart. You just have to touch it. And you can start, you can browse through the store first, figure out where you want to start, and then 60 seconds you can touch. Anything you touch goes into your thing. So there's two people. There's a smart person. The smart person does what? Walks through Costco and says, okay, the item that's the most expensive is the new GE, AI-powered whatever refrigerator that's $13,200. So the smart person says, okay, I'm ready. And then what? Touches that refrigerator for 60 seconds, just over and over again. Why? At the end, they say, okay, you touched this, 612 times whatever, 13,000. Okay, so you're going to get $2 million. The dumb person does what? Just walks through, okay, I'm ready, goes up, ooh, I'm in the mood for a Kit Kat today. Picks up the Kit Kat, starts eating it, unwraps it. Oh, it's 13 calories on it. Yeah, takes the M&M. By the end, what? He touched 19 candy bars, right? And you'll think, what an idiot, but that's life. There's some people that realize the only thing you take with you to the next world is what? Your mitzvahs. So they spend their entire life trying to do mitzvahs. How can you get mitzvahs even when you're sleeping? You say, okay, Hashem, I'm so tired right now. I need to sleep so I can wake up in the morning to do what? To learn Torah, to do mitzvahs. You can sponsor Torah lectures. And, every morning I wake up, I can see where my life has changed because 2014, 15, 16, I had the second biggest Jewish website in the whole world. I wake up every morning and to see how much money I earned at night while I was sleeping. Because my dad was always curious, because my dad's from a different generation. You go in, you work, whatever. He always asked me, how much did you make when you were sleeping, right? So I wake up, the first thing I would factor in is, I went to sleep, I saw how much I made, and now what do? I go to Facebook and YouTube, and I see how many hours of Torah people watched of my lectures. So that when I was sleeping, you multiply that by 60,000 mitzvahs an hour for learning Torah, and I see now, I made like 13 million mitzvahs while I was sleeping. That's how you know that you're going down a better path in life. When you're not worried about the physical, you're worried about the spiritual. Okay, now, pronunciation. Clearly there's something unique about the Tzadi if most people don't even know how to pronounce the letter. The proper name of the 18th letter of the AlefBeis is what? Tzadi. But it's commonly called Tzadik. According to the Magen David, the Tzadik results from a run-on pronunciation of the two letters, Tzadi and Kuf, right? Tzadik Kuf. Tzadik Kuf. Tzadik Kuf. Which when spoken rapidly sounds like Tzadik Kuf. An additional source of this name to the letter is the Talmud and Shabbos, which speaks of the allusions of the two forms of the letter with the words, the bent Tzadi and the straight Tzadi, the bent Tzadik and the erect Tzadik. The bent form is used at the beginning and the middle of the word, while the straight is used at the end of the word. Right? This is what it says in the Gemara and Shabbos. The letter Tzadi is referred to as Tzadi in the Talmud. And the Yerushalmi, Tzadi is spelled Tzadi, Daled, Yud, is listed along with the other letters that have a final form. Similarly, in the Talmud Bavli and Shabbos provides a midrash on the names of the letters of the AlefBeis, in which it spells out the name Tzadi. On the previous page of the Talmud, when listing the letters that can be erroneously interchanged when written, uses the word tzadin when referring to the plural of tzadi, providing further evidence that the name does not end with a kuf. Because if it ended with the kuf, the plural of tzadi would not be tzadin. The Talmud says further, once again mentions the tzadi when questioning where the letter is located on the high priest's breastplate, which is the Urim V'Tumim. One of the earliest and most important Jewish philologists, Yonah ibn Yanach, mentions the word tzadi many times in his Sefer HaShorashim, very famous Sefer. More recent evidence can be found that Tzech Chemetis arranged alphabetically and includes a section called Tsadi, and the sections detailing the halachas of the written Sefer Torah. The Encyclopedia Judaica also uses the word Tsadi. So does Rav Herschel Schachter, refers to it as Tsadi. Moreover, parallel letters in Arabic, Syriac, and Ethiopic, all closely related to languages, have no K sound at the end. Despite this, one still hears the letter referred to quite often as tzaddik. I mean, if I was the tzaddi, the letter, I'd actually be happy that, people are interchanging my name with what? With righteousness. The most likely reason for this is again, because the kuf directly followed tzadi, so it sounds like tzadik kuf, right? So many people inadvertently link the two. Another reason is that in the Hebrew acrostics, the word tzaddik, as in righteous person, is frequently used for the letter tzadi in various midrashim, right? The word tzaddik appears in connection with tzadi. Examples of this are in Tehillim, which is included in Ashrei. Despite the error, the letter tzadi is found in the letter tzadik is found in many traditional sources. However, unlike the misconception regarding Cheshvan and Mar Cheshvan, right? There's a big, machloikas. What do we call the month after Tishrei? Is it Cheshvan or Mar Cheshvan, right? Why do we call it Mar? Because it's bitter, because there's no holidays in it. Unlike that disagreement that actually has halachic ramifications, this one persists, this sort of disagreement persists with little, if any, protest. Because again, we are basically saying that what are we doing to the tzadi, the letter? We are sometimes mispronouncing it or misassociating it with something so holy. So the sages are like, okay, if you want to get it wrong, basically, it's not the end of the world. You're not breaking any halacha. It's clearly tzadi, but it's okay, what's the worst thing in the world? You're associating a letter with what? Righteousness. Something we should all shoot for. It's actually very interesting. I found this to be very, very, like, almost cute, with the letter. You see everything in Judaism, right? What's the joke? A Jew's found on a desert island. On a deserted island, and they see that he's built 2 synagogues, right? He's built 2 shuls, and they say, "You've been here for like 6 months stranded. Why'd you build 2 shuls? This is the shul I daven at. That's the shul I'll never daven at." Everything about Judaism is disagreement. That's literally what the Talmud is. It is just a compendium of disagreements of the biggest sages of all time. Yet here, we have a total, blundering of a letter, yet there's almost zero pushback. There's no one that will tell you, okay, you're pronouncing it wrong, you're breaking whatever. You won't find that. Why? Because what's the ultimate to shoot for in life? To be like the Shinova Rebbe, right? He was called the Rebbe of all Rebbes. To be a tzaddik. So if you're mispronouncing a word and calling it tzaddik, okay, it's not the end of the world. The earliest source that refers to the letter as actually tzaddik appears to be the Sifrei, to Devarim 6:9, where a scribe is cautioned not to mix up the letters tzaddik and gimel. One might deduce from this that the alternative pronunciation already existed in the 5th century. However, this is not the case. The first printed edition of the Sifrei used the term tzaddik. However, earlier manuscripts all refer to the letter as tzadi. Thus, it appears that the error may have been introduced by the printer. Right? There's so many things in Judaism that they found later on, like a Talmud in different countries was just a printing error. It's not like, the printing presses back then were as advanced as they are now. So a lot of these were just they're not scribal errors. They're not, intentional mistake. They're just an accidental printing error. And the introduction to the Zohar, God is quoted as saying to the Tzadi, "O Tzadi, you are Tzadi and you are Tzadik." This is understood to mean that God was telling the Tzadi that he's righteous. But it can be misunderstood to mean that God was saying that the name of the Tzadi is both Tzadi and Tzadik. This is actually in the Zohar. Rashi, in his commentary on the Gemara, in Menachos 29b, actually calls the letter Tzadik as well. And many times, in modern times, the use of the term Tzadik has become even more popular. This is all according to Rabbi Dr. Ari Zivotofsky. The thing in the Zohar is it's actually very, again, I just want to say, it's almost cute that we know it's a mistake, but it's it's so wholesome, it's so holy, it's just something that's we're not even stopping it from persisting. In the Zohar itself, God is quoted as saying to the letter Tzadi, "O Tzadi, you are Tzadi and you are Tzadik," meaning you're going to be mispronounced, but don't worry. It's a wonderful mispronunciation. Okay. Where's the first time that we see tzaddik in the Torah? Because clearly, if the letter itself is such a blur, how do we even pronounce it? And God himself basically is saying in the Zohar, Tzadi, you're such a righteous letter. Yeah, you're probably also going to be called Tzadik. No big deal, right? Who's called the Tzadik? Noah, right? Noah. Eila told us Noah ish tzaddik. Right? Noah was a tzaddik. Something very interesting in Rashi's commentary on this. This is very fascinating. To show the level that Rashi went to, sort of almost hidden. It's he slyly put this in there. There's a debate. Was Noah really a tzaddik? Or was he just a tzaddik in his own generation? Meaning, it's being thin or just being the thinnest person at fat camp. No offense to anyone that's sober. I'm just trying to give an analogy. Was Noah Righteous because everyone in his generation was so wicked that Hashem literally wiped them all out with the flood? Or was Noach really righteous? The Torah says, Eila Tolos Noach. These are the descendants of Noach. Noach was a tzaddik. I mean, if we're not going to say that Noach was a tzaddik, then we're going to basically have to say that the Torah what? In essence, lied. That's what Rashi says. Listen to what Rashi says. First of all, what does tzaddik mean? Noach was called a tzaddik. The verse relates his praise, right? It teaches you that the main posterity of a righteous person is what? Is their good deeds, right? But there's something very interesting. It says, Badoro Sav, right? Tamim haya Badoro Sav. Ela tolos Noach, Noach ish tzaddik, Tamim haya Badoro Sav. The following are the descendants of Noach, right? The generations of Noach. Noach was a righteous man, faultless, Badoro Sav, in his generation, right? So that sort of opens the door for this machlokes, right? So some of the sages say what? Rashi says, Yesh me'ravosenu. Some of our sages explain this to his credit. If he was righteous in his disgusting, wicked generation, of course he would be righteous in a better generation. But then listen to what Rashi says. It's very, very interesting. It's also very, very famous. He says then, V'yesh shedorshim oso lignai. But others explain this to his discredit. Notice what Rashi did. Some of our rabbis explain this to his credit, but others explain this to his discredit. That he was righteous only in his own generation, but if you compared him to Avraham Avinu, he wouldn't be righteous. Rashi did not even call those that disagree and say that Noach was only righteous in his generation, he'd be nothing in another generation. Rashi calls them what? V'yesh. But others, he doesn't call them rabbis. Rashi is basically insinuating what? If the Torah goes out of its way for the first time to call someone a tzaddik, the first time you see the word tzaddik is Noach, to try to grapple with this righteousness and to try to only credit the righteousness. Oh, in this generation, but if he was in this generation. Rashi's saying, you don't even merit to be called our rabbis. I learned this in a Rabbi Gladstein shir that I listened to one time. Again, Rashi says, there are some rabbis that say this to his credit, and there's others, he doesn't even call them rabbis. He said, it's such a disgrace that anyone would sit here and question that the Torah calls Noach a tzaddik. If the Torah attests that Noach's a tzaddik, how dare anybody try to he's only a little bit of a tzaddik. He wouldn't be a tzaddik in the generation of, Abraham. How dare you? That was Rashi's sort of a zinger. Because Rashi's very terse, there's no wasted words. So he didn't say yesh, say this as a credit, and yesh say this as a discredit. He said yesh rabosenu. Some of our rabbis say this as a credit, others just say it as a discredit. Rashi was giving a big, punch to those that have the gall to question the righteousness of someone that the Torah attests to was righteous. That's the first time that tzaddik, right? The word tzaddik appears in the Torah. Very important. Okay, this is very interesting. The location of the letter, right? Again, an A could have been an F, could have been a Q. There is nothing special or inherently, holy or unique or whatever. It's just someone said, okay, an A is going to look like a teepee with a little bar across. End of story. Not in Hebrew. Every aspect of the Hebrew letter is divine and is intentional and is holy and is special and is unique. And if you've listened to any of these episodes, it took Zachari one episode to listen to say, okay, this is awesome. I'll listen to more. And it is. I was not expecting to enjoy this that much. I know Hebrew. My Hebrew's not fantastic. I thought that I would maybe do, one letter every few weeks, and it would take me, I think I started right when I got back from Tishrei. So we're a little over like 2 months in, and Baruch Hashem, we're almost done, because this has been, of all the things I've learned in my life, I have a few things I love learning, end of time stuff, Yishmael and Esav. This has actually, I think, been the most interesting and the most enlightening. Listen to this. This is so powerful. The location of the letter Tzadi, right? It's the 18th letter. Where does it fall? The letter Samech, right? Samech, Ayin, Pei, Tzadi. Okay? You have Samech, just a sort of circular. Ayin, which means eye. Then there's Pei, which means mouth. And then there's Tzadi. Samech represents and symbolizes safeguarding and closure, right? Samech is literally a closed letter. Ayin represents what? Eye, sight. It literally means eye, right? There's two letters back to back. Ayin means eye, and Pei means mouth. The Pei represents and symbolizes speech. Then after these three letters, safeguarding, sight, and speech, you get what? Tsadi, which represents what? Tzadik. Meaning what? A person who safeguards and protects his eyes from seeing evil things, protects his mouth from speaking bad things, is on his way to being what? A tzaddi, a tzaddik, a righteous individual. What else is interesting? We'll talk about this when we get into the gematria. Tzadi is what? 18th letter. 18 is a unbelievably powerful and special letter in Judaism. 18 means what? Chai. I wear a Magid David, but a lot of people wear what? A Chai, right? Chai means what? Life. In Jewish tradition, the number 18 represents life, right? Chai, which has a numerical value of 18, right? Ches and Yud. One who safeguards himself and uses the limbs of his body, his eyes, his mouth, his ears, for holiness will be what? Will be what? The tzaddik. Will be a tzaddi. And will merit what? Long life. Gematria of tzaddi is what? 90. Very beautiful. You see this beautiful synergy. We did an unbelievable, the synergy between the gimel and the dalet. The gimel literally looks like someone running to give what? Tzedakah to who? The dalet. Dalim means poor. So you have this unbelievable bond between the gimel and the dalet. Aleph and Beis. Nun and Samech. And now we see this row of letters. Samech is what? It's enclosed. It's safeguarding. Safeguarding what? Safeguarding your eyes. Ayin, that comes next. And then Pei, which comes after that. All of which leads to what? Righteousness. Tzadi. Tzadik. So beautiful. So beautiful. Okay, what does the Arizal have to say? Talk a lot about the Arizal on these because, the Arizal was unbelievable. He had a very beautiful take on letters, like Kabbalistic, spin on letters and words. So the Arizal maintained that God created the world by an act of tzimtzum, a voluntary withdrawal or contraction, right? In order to what? To quote unquote make room for his creation. Since tzimtzum begins with the letter Tzadi, the Arizal reasoned that the first creative act in this world was Hashem's voluntary act of humbling himself in order to make room for the world that he created. Again, it's easier to understand than it might have just sounded. God can't fit into this world without contracting himself. Meaning, for God to create a world with borders, and he had to basically tzimtzum. That's literally what it is. He had to, spirit. Metaphorically, I won't say physically because Hashem doesn't have a physical form. He had to humble himself in order to create the world that he created. It'd be like, when you're a parent and a child's in, like one of those little playhouses. How do you get into the playhouse to play with the child? You literally have to crawl down on your knees, scrouch in, and you're like just totally, that's in essence, what Hashem had to do. He had to humble himself. Because what else did Hashem, I mentioned this earlier, Hashem cannot take over your free will. I can decide, and when this lecture is over, that I am going to go make a blessing on, the yellow bag of peanut M&Ms, or I'm going to drive to the Publix across the street and buy lobster. Chas v'shalom. I have that choice. Hashem knows what I'm going to do, but that doesn't mean that I don't have free choice. Hashem knows the outcome, but he cannot stop that outcome because Hashem is not bound by time. So he knows that I will either eat the M&Ms or go buy the lobster. God willing, it's going to be the former. But I have that choice. I have a choice at all times to either follow Hashem or not follow Hashem. That is what, in essence, tzimtzum is. He had to humble himself in order to create the world. The concept of tzimtzum is somewhat paradoxical, since on one hand, if God did not restrict himself, then nothing could exist. Everything would be overwhelmed by God's totality. And on the other hand, God continuously sustains the created universe. From the perspective of the tzaddik, tzimtzum means making yourself less in order to make others more. That's very, very powerful. Again, keep this in mind. Again, tzimtzum is a word that you can see the tzaddis in the word. 2 tzaddis are in this. Tzimtzum. From the perspective of the tzaddik, tzimtzum means making yourself less in order to make others more. Another allusion to the humility that is embedded within a righteous person. And it's also embedded into the shape of the letter itself. Now, what I found to be the most fascinating, maybe of any of the letters that I've done, is every letter has a mate. Like Australians. Oh, good eye, mate. Every letter has a mate. What's the mate of the Tzadi? The Aleph. If you actually look at Aleph and Tzadi, they're very, very similar. I think they're both probably the 2 most uniquely shaped letters, but I think Tzadi is clearly the most unique of them all. Why is there this bond between the Aleph and the Tzadi? It says that the Tzadik lives by his faith. Right? Very famous pasuk in Judaism. The tzaddik lives by his faith. The form of the letter tzadi resembles that of the aleph more than any other letter. Again, look at the aleph right now and look at the tzadi. They're very, very similar. The 22 letters of the AlefBeis pair into 11 form mates. The 2 letters whose forms most closely resemble one another as taught in Kabbalah. The mate of the aleph is the tzadi, right? The mate of the Aleph represents a Shem, right? Aleph is literally a Yud and a Vav, gematria 26, which is the Yud, K, Vav, K name of Hashem. So the mate of Hashem is who? The Tzaddik, the righteous person. The mate of Hashem is the righteous person. Who does Hashem love more than anyone? A righteous person. So the Tzadi obviously represents Tzaddik, right? And the Aleph represents Hashem, right? The Aleph is one. The Aleph is literally the letter of Hashem. So the mate of the letter Tzadi is the letter Aleph. The mate of the righteous person is what? Hashem. This bond, this beautiful bond and synergy. Who does the righteous person live for? Lives to please his creator. Like we said, this is connected with the tzimtzum idea of the Arizal. That Tsadi is the mate of the Aleph. This is seen in the letters' forms themselves and suggests that God and his redeemed creation, right, the tzaddikim, would be joined together in love. Since Aleph represents the creator and Tsadi, right, represents the reflection of his image, right, we're created what? B'tselem Elokim, right, in the image of Hashem. Aleph represents Hashem and we are created B'tselem Elokim. B'tselem Elokim means what? Like in the image of Hashem. And it establishes that all people, regardless of background, race, or status, have intrinsic value. It refers to the spiritual essence, intellect, and free will that humans share with God, not physical resemblance. Recognizing this image in others allows us to show respect, love, and patience even towards those we find difficult. Everyone has in them a godly spark, right? Where do we see this? Bereshis, chapter 1. Hashem says, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, right? Rav Avram Yitzhak Kook wrote that all souls that were born into the world and all souls that were born in the years to come, that will be born in the years to come, were all created at the very beginning of time. They are time released. You know, like these pills, they were time released. Oh, you'll feel like, you'll feel whatever for 10 minutes, and then all of a sudden you're going to see purple floating elephants 17 minutes later. Okay, these souls are time released into the world, depending on when creation needs their particular gifts. I always give this to Var Torah around Yom Kippur time. What do we say? Like, now that I'm created, before I was created, I was nothing. Now that I'm created, like, what am I doing with? What was I created for? The fact that you are in this world now means that the world cannot exist without you. There is something needed by you, through you, for you in the world today. If it didn't, you wouldn't exist anymore. That should make people feel special. When people, I'm so useless. I don't matter. I have no... Again, you're created b'tselem Elokim. Even the most wicked, disgusting monster is still created b'tselem Elokim. There is some trace of godliness inside that person. But specifically when it's coming to talking about the Jews, the Yehudim, right? That there's the Pintele Yid. Meaning what? No matter how much you cover over your pure, righteous, beautiful soul with just sheker and evil and materialism, it's what? It's still there. It's like a pearl that's lost at sea. The pearl's still there. It's just lost. There's a unique godly aspect in every single person, which means what? The perfection of creation needs each and every one of us. Even though we may feel that we're not so different from others, and we may tell ourselves, what do I have to contribute? Poor me. Nothing God creates is superfluous. Each one of us is unique and has a job to do here that no one else in all of creation can ever do. The Hebrew letter Tsadi is fundamentally associated with the concept of humble or bent, which is a profound and central theme in Judaism. The symbolic meaning is derived direct from the physical shape of the letter itself, offering rich theological and ethical insights. The standard form of the letter Tzadi is visually interpreted as being composed of two Hebrew letters, a bent nun and a ascending yud. This composite form is rich with meaning. The bent nun, the letter nun itself represents humility, right? Being humble. And a faithful servant who is what? Bent. In submission and dependence upon who? God. The numerical value of nun is 50, associated with the 50 gates of wisdom, right? Of understanding, suggesting a deep, albeit human, capacity for wisdom that still requires divine input. Then there's the ascending yud. The yud represents what? A hand lifted up to Hashem, right? And is a symbol of the divine spark or Hashem's presence, has a value of 10. Yud has a value of 10. The combined meaning. Together, the form of Tsadi depicts a humble, faithful servant with arms raised in praise, or carrying the divine spark, that yud on their back, as they submit to the will of the Creator. This imagery beautifully illustrates the essence of what? A tzaddik, right? A righteous person, whose righteousness is not a source of pride, but an expression of profound humility and connection to Hashem. Very beautiful. Okay, more about the design. Let's get back to the bent and straight forms, right? The regular form and the final form. The Hebrew alphabet has 5 letters that have a regular and final form. Right? It's Kaf, Mem, Nun, Pei, Tzadi. Tsadi has the bent form, used at the beginning, and a straighter final form at the end of the word. This duality provides an even deeper, more dynamic explanation of the spiritual path. The bent Tsadi is what? This form represents the righteous person who is humble in this world, acutely aware of their need for God and the need to suppress their ego. The bent posture is a physical manifestation of what? A humble heart. Contrasting with the puffed up nature of the wicked person, which is represented by what? Chametz. What's chametz? Bread rising. Why do we have to comb through every corner of our house before Pesach to get rid of chametz? Because what's chametz? Chametz is ego. It's that puffed up, bread, dough, wheat that becomes what? Ego. It's not just getting every crumb. It's getting the crumbs inside of you. It's trying to eradicate every trace of ego. Oh, I just got a new job promotion because Hashem blessed you with it. It's not because of, your intellect. Hashem blessed you with that. It's not because of this amazing idea. Hashem helped you with that. That's what Pesach is. It's literally what? It's getting rid of all the puffed up things that accumulate from the year. Just like what? The bread that falls between the cracks, right? This is the ongoing state of the tzaddik as they navigate life's challenges and strive for spiritual growth. Then there's the straight tzaddi, right? At the end of a word. The final elongated form represents the elevated tzaddik who will what? Stand straight upright and be fully revealed in their righteousness in the world to come. There are so many, I basically like to read Hasidic Rebbe stories before I go to sleep. Actually, last night I read maybe 20 of them, then I passed out. For a few years, especially during Corona, when you couldn't daven in shul in Israel, I was literally up till 4 or 5 in the morning reading hundreds of Hasidic Rebbe stories, and then I'd fall asleep and I'd wake up to daven shachars in my house. So I love these stories. I probably read 20,000 stories of seemingly normal, ordinary people that turned out to be some of the most righteous, holy people, that even people that you think are holy now said, I couldn't even hold a candle to this. He was a water carrier. He was a janitor. He was a... That's the final tzaddi. That's what the tzaddi at the end is. What? Who finally bestows this righteousness? Hashem. Hashem said, unbelievable life. Look at what a tzaddik you were. The rest of the world didn't know. Perfect example of this, Rav Avigdor Miller. Rav Avigdor Miller has the greatest hashkafa of probably any rabbi maybe in the last few hundred years. What's hashkafa? Your outlook on life. His hashkafa was a direct line to Hashem. He was the Rav of a shul. He'd give lectures to a few dozen people. Actually, rabbis in surrounding shuls would thank him because he was so straight that people couldn't handle the truth. And they, leave his shul to go to other shuls. Yet when he passed away is when it dawned on everyone just how much. You'll see Rav Avigdor Miller books, audio cassettes. There's now whole parsha sheets. When I was in New York, there's a whole Rav Avigdor Miller parsha sheet. In his lifetime, he was a huge rabbi in his lifetime, but he wasn't appreciated until after death. That's when the true righteousness of Rav Avigdor Miller, and every year that goes by, he's getting greater and greater and greater. He passed away, decades ago. Yet his righteousness, what? Gets stronger and stronger and stronger, even after death. The final tzaddi is what? When are you upright? You live your whole life bent. You're humble. When do you get to stand upright in the next world? That's when it counts. It symbolizes the final and ultimate reward of what? The tzaddik, which is a perfect and complete state of the soul that has achieved what? True righteousness. The idea is that the humility practiced in this life, the bent tzaddi, leads to an erect, triumphant, straight, standing tzaddi in the presence of Hashem for eternity. You can't get better than that. I mean, that literally is... Okay, a few more things on the design, and then we'll go weiter. The design of the tzaddik is a yud on top of the nun. One interpretation of the nun is that it stands for ona'ah, meaning deceit or fraud. By nature, most of us have the misconception that it's the physical world which is the ultimate source of truth and pleasure. That's, again, literally how 99.9% of the people live. And speaking of Rabbi Victor Miller, one of his famous quotes, 99.99% of the world is going to live, and they will never for 1 second ask what they're doing here, what their purpose is, what their destiny is. You see this now. You see these kids. I used to go for like a 10, 15-mile walk in Netanya every day. I remember one time I was walking. It was a day that kids weren't in school. And I was walking north of Netanya along the road that goes near the sea. And then I started walking near these like nice, moshavim, the smaller neighborhoods. I think it was 6 kids. They were all sitting on the sidewalk. They were all on their phones, literally one sitting right next to each other. And I stopped, and I never stop when I'm walking. But I stopped, and I just stared, right? And to see how long they would go without saying one word to each other. And you know what? Since I didn't feel like wasting my whole day there, I moved on. One of the saddest moments of my life, that's the modern generation. They think that what? The source of ultimate truth and pleasure is what? In these physical things. Got to get the new clothes. Got to get the new Gucci bag. Got to get the new Air Jordans because my friend just got the new Air. That's the world. That this is the poison that the modern generation, that the kids in this generation mostly are growing up with. The ona'ah. Ona'ah means deceit, fraud, right? They feel that what? The physical world is the ultimate source, right? That's why, 25% of the kids think they're transgender. Like 90% of the kids say that they're depressed. Why? Because they don't even know what they're living for. They have no life. But then there's the yud, right? The yud riding on the back. The yud's coming, riding on the back of the nun to the rescue, right? That's the design of the tzaddi, which is what? The divine intellect. Telling you what? Kid, you honestly think that the goal that Hashem created you was to come down so that you could sit next to 5 of your friends staring at a phone playing a stupid video game for the next 6-8 hours? No human interaction, no trying to better yourself. That's lunacy. But this is how the world lives. That's why the yud is so little. That's why the spiritual yud, right? Yud is the only letter that's suspended. It's coming in, riding on the back of the nun saying, hello, everybody! That's not what you're living for. This is what you're living for. Shabbos, kosher, mitzvah, tzedakah, helping your fellow Jews, uplifting the world, connecting to God who created you. There must be something truer and more godly upon which to focus. This heightened intention is the essence of the letter Tzadi, Tzadik. The Zohar recounts that when Hashem wanted to create the world, every letter of the AlefBeis came before him and said, God, create the world with me. The Tav came first, right? And then Shin, and then so on. They went backwards. Then the Tzadi appeared and God said, God, create the world with me. I am the Tzaddik, the righteous one. So God responded, yes. But because you are righteous, you must be hidden. Therefore, I cannot create the world with you. My cousin mentioned this yesterday in this beautiful 45-minute joint Torah lesson that we gave live on Facebook. The last 3 letters of the first 3 words, right? Bereshis, bara, Elokim, is a tav, an aleph, and a mem, which spells what? MS, truth. So the last letters of the first 3 words spell truth, but jumbled, right? Because you have to what? But then the next 3 words, it spells what? It spells truth, meaning words 2, 3, and 4. Then it spells MS, right? Why? Because truth is jumbled. The tzaddik is what? Is hidden. Everything is hidden. You have to work. You have to toil to do what? To be a tzaddik. You have to toil to find the truth. Everything in your life is being blasted towards you is what? Sheker. Every single thing you see on TV, the news, advertisements, it's all sheker. It's all falsehood. You have to what? You have to search for the truth. That's why the world couldn't be created with the Tzadi. Hashem said, because you are righteous, you must be hidden. So then the question is asked, if the Tzaddik is righteous, why would Hashem have wanted to use it to create the world? Every creature in the world would then be upright and pure, rather than living in a realm of immortality, theft, and deceit. We would live in a world that is safe, peaceful, and godly. Again, I always ask people, why did Hashem just put us in the next world? Why did he put us in this world? Clearly, this world has a purpose, a task, an ultimate, purpose, and a destiny, and a goal. The answer is it would be too easy. We wouldn't have earned it. God's intention is that we should be born into an incomplete physical world and do what? Strive to perfect it. With godliness that flows from the Yud, we can strengthen our ability to overcome the Nun, the pleasures of the corporeal world. The Tzaddik must therefore be concealed in creation so that one can strive for righteousness on his own. Honestly, this might be the best letter yet. This is just Baruch Hashem. And I'm not saying that to demean the other letters, but again, the fact that Tsadi, and I found this to just be, I was just like marveling at this as I'm doing the research. The fact that Tsadi is the only letter that, again, a lot of people think that the letter is Tzadik. It showed that there's this yearning for righteousness that we need. That's like encapsulated in this beautiful letter. Okay, the meaning. Tzadi got its name from the shape of a fishing hook, right? It literally looks like the shape of a fishing hook. Or like a bird trap. Which is related to the word sod, meaning to hunt or to catch or to capture. The letter itself is a bent nun and a yud. Some people say it's a bent nun and a vav, right? The nun represents a humble and faithful servant that is bent in submission. I'm sorry, nun and a yud. The yud represents a hand lifted to Hashem. The tzaddik, the righteous person, is therefore revealed in the letter form as a faithful servant with arms raised, right? When you're davening, you see some people going like this. They're literally shaped like a tzaddi, like the letter tzaddi. The tzaddik, the righteous person, is therefore revealed in the letter form as the faithful servant with arm raised in humility, right? As such, some of the sages have said that the letter tzaddi represents the tzaddikim, that are the yisod, the foundation of the world. As it says in Mishlei, Proverbs, when the storm passes through, the wicked are swept away, but the righteous are an everlasting foundation. Since God alone is perfectly righteous and upright, tzaddik v'yashar, right? We say this in Devarim, Deuteronomy 32:4. Tzaddik v'yashar, righteous and upright. And his righteousness is the only true foundation of the universe. The tzaddik is said to reflect the divine image, the B'Tselem Elokim. When he or she lives in humility and dependence upon Hashem for the ability to live in trusting obedience of his will. As it says in Habakkuk, behold, his soul is puffed up. It is not upright within him, but the righteous shall live by his faith. Right? Very famous. Others suggest that a connection between obedience and righteousness are tzedek and tzedakah. Right? Just as the malachim are Hashem's messengers in heaven, so too the tzaddikim, the righteous, are Hashem's messengers upon earth. The Hebrew letter tzadi, meaning fish hook, symbolizes being drawn to something, catching, or righteousness. Its fish hook shape connects the root sod, meaning to fish or to hunt, representing Hashem catching people for salvation, or hunting those who reject him, right? It's both. Pulling in or pushing away. It signifies spiritual connection, justice, and righteousness. How about the symbolism with the fish hook? God uses the hook to draw people to him, like a fisherman catching fish. The letter tzadi, like we said, is linked to tzaddik and tzedek, suggesting a righteous path that hooks one into action. You're like drawn. It's like you see these fish. The second you put that hot dog in the water, they just come running. You see a tzaddik, and the second an opportunity comes to help a fellow Jew, to learn Torah, to give tzedakah. They're just jumping into action like they're being drawn by a fish hook. It relates to hunting and capturing, both spiritually, redeeming, these sparks of holiness, and literally, in the sense of being caught or hunted by Hashem. It can represent a powerful, compelling desire or command that compels one to act righteously. Key meanings: tzaddik, right, righteous person; sod, to fish or to hunt; tzedakah, charity or justice; and tzimtzum, right, this contraction. For people that like my lectures, I've done multiple lectures on the war of Gog and Magog, on how almost everything that you hear about the word of Gog and Magog is not at all what it says according to the text. I listened to a 4-part series from a rabbi. I probably listened to it 10 or 15 times. It was probably 8-hour series. He did every single part of Gog and Magog straight from the text. So much of modern Judaism, not talking about modern Orthodox, just things in modern Judaism are just a terrible game of telephone. Like when you're like 3 years old and you're doing a game of telephone, and it's like, oh, Janie got a new shirt, and then at the end, it comes back at the end of the telephone, Janie pooped her diaper. That's like, what is something so powerful from the war of Gog and Magog that literally relates to the Tzadi? V'shovavticha v'nasati hachim bilchayecha. What does Hashem say? Hashem is literally talking to Gog, right? This is in Ezekiel 38, and he says what? I will turn you around and put hooks in your jaw, and lead you out with all your army, horses and riders, all of them clothed in splendor, a vast assembly, all of them with bucklers and shields, wielding swords. This is how Ezekiel describes like this vision that Hashem gives him of Gog from Magog. That's also a misconception. It's Gog Magog. Gog is from Magog. But the wording that it uses is what? Gog is going to be like a fish that Hashem just puts his claws into him and then yanks him to invade Israel and ultimately lose. But the wording itself is this, hunting and fishing. I will turn you around. I will put hooks in your jaw and lead you out with your army. What else is so special about the Tzadi? It's one of the 7 crowned letters. If you open up the Torah scroll, and if you don't have a Torah scroll in your house, which you probably don't, if you just Google Torah scroll, you will see these 3 vavs. They look like a crown that exist on 7 particular letters. Shin, Ayin, Tes, Nun, Zion, Gimel, and Tsadi. The Midrash describes the origin of these, they're called tagin, crowns, as part of Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah at Har Sinai. The Talmud describes how Moshe was wondering why God was affixing these embellishments to certain letters of the Torah. When Moshe went up to Hashem, he found Hashem sitting and putting little crowns on top of the letters of the law. He said to God, "Who is it that forces you to put these crowns to the letters of the law, which you've already written?" He replied, "A man is to appear on earth after many generations, Akiva ben Yosef," meaning Rabbi Akiva will be his name, "who will expound each top of every letter of the law, heaps and heaps of rulings." Rabbi Akiva could look at every single letter and he would deduce and extract unbelievable insight and meaning and beauty and spirituality into every single one of these crowns. Rabbi Akiva hit the 50th level of wisdom. No other human being has ever hit this level, including Moshe Rabbeinu. That's what the sages say. Okay, gematria. Gematria is 90. The gematria of Tzadi is 90. But even more important than the gematria is the numerical position of the letter, which is 18. Okay? In Hebrew, chai, right, 18 means life. Numerical value of 18, derived from the letters ches and yud. This makes 18 a highly symbolic number for what? Mazel, well-being, and blessing. Often seen in charitable giving, right? Most people give charity in multiples of 18. They'll give $18, $36, $180, $540. You'll never usually see people just, okay, I'll give 1,000. It's usually some multiple of 18. Why? Because 18 is life. When you have a drink, you say what? L'chaim, right? Which means what? To life. Also, you see chai on jewelry. It's a powerful, beautiful Jewish number. There's no coincidence that Tzadi, righteous, falls at what? Because what's the whole point of life? To be righteous. So Tzadi could not have been the 17th letter or the 19th letter. It had to be the 18th letter because it has this unique connection between righteousness and life. True life. Okay. Now, what about 90? Tzadi has a numerical value of 90. I in a 70, there's so many, just unbelievable things that, revolve around 70. 90 is a tough one. There's not so much with 90, so I thought. But there is. First, 90 is significant in Jewish tradition as fullness of life. Right? Torah talks about at 5 years old, a person should start studying the Torah, and then at 10 years old, Mishnah, 13 years old, Gemara. At 80 is like special strength, and at 90, it says like for a decrepitude, meaning like that's full life. Who was 90 years old when she gave birth to Yitzhak? Sarah, right? Avram was 100, Sarah was 90. Sarah was 90 years old and pregnant with who? Yitzhak. Who am I doing this lecture for? Zechariah's grandfather, Yitzchak, right? What's the most prominent letter in Yitzchak? The Tzadi. Moreover, the gematria for tzaddikim, the righteous ones, and the phrase Ha'or ki tov, the light was good, right, in creation, is the same, 259. The word Tsadi itself has a gematria of 104, which is the same as the word lelamed, which means to teach. What's the biggest connection with 90? There's a very special, powerful word that also has a gematria of 90, right? Tzadi is gematria 90. What else is gematria 90? The word Melech, king, right? Melech is what? Melech, Mem, 40, Lamed, 30, and Chaf, 20. Kaf, 20. 40, 30, 20 is 90. What's this connection between tzaddik, righteous, tzedek, justice, tzedakah, charity, and the king? When I was starting to do this, almost every other letter I've had just no problem finding stuff with gematria. 90 again was tough. It's mentioned in that Pirkei Avos. I know that Sarah was 90. There ain't much else except this. And this might be the most powerful of all the gematria connections. Melech, right? What's the entire purpose of our davening between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur? We include what in our davening multiple times? Melech, right? We don't say Hakel HaKadosh. We say HaMelech HaKadosh, right? We don't say Hakel Mishpat. We say HaMelech HaMishpat, the king. We are saying when Rosh Hashanah comes, right? Even a month before, when Elul comes, and it says that the king is like in the fields, meaning Hashem's close. The analogy they use is like, a king in the 1500s, he comes out of his big walled palace the month before and he goes around, how you doing, Joe? How's business? And Joe's just, the king knows my name. Yeah, the king knows your name. The king is close. The king wants what? You to come close to him. Rosh Hashanah is what? It's the start of us acknowledging what? That Hashem is our king. It's like our yearly reminder that Hashem is the king. He's the Melech. So you have this unbelievable connection between the letter Tzadi, gematria 90, and the word Melech, also gematria 90. A mitzvah of the Torah is that what? We are commanded that every king who sits in rulership over the Jewish people shall do what? Write a Sefer Torah for himself. And it shall never separate from him. It's written in small, like amulet form, and is attached to his arm. The source of this commandment is Hashem's statement, exalted be he. When he is established on his royal throne, he shall write him for himself a copy of this Torah. What is the king supposed to be? What is the ideal concept of a Jewish king? I'll give you an example of what rulership is supposed to be based on a very, very beautiful story in the Gemara. This is in Horayos 10a. Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yoshua were traveling together on a ship. Rabbi Gamliel had sufficient bread for the journey. Rabbi Yoshua also had sufficient bread, but he additionally brought flour. The journey lasted longer than expected, and Rabbi Gamliel's bread was finished. He relied on Rabbi Yoshua's flour for nourishment. Rabbi Gamliel said to Rabbi Yoshua, "Did you know from the outset that we would have a substantial delay? Is that the reason you brought flour with you?" Rabbi Yoshua then said to Rabbi Gamliel, "There is one star that rises once every 70 years and misleads sailors at sea, causing their journeys to be extended. And I said, perhaps that star will rise during our journey and mislead us." Rabbi Gamliel said to him, "So much wisdom is at your disposal, and you board a ship to earn your livelihood?" Rabbi Yeshua said to him, "Before you wonder about me, wonder about two students that you have on dry land, Rabbi Elazar Chizma and Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgeda, who are so wise, they know how to calculate how many drops of water there are in the sea. And yet they neither have bread to eat nor a garment to wear." Rabbi Gamliel made up his mind to seat them at the head of the academy so they could, be paid for their work. When Rabbi Gamliel ascended to dry land, he sent a messenger to tell them to come so that he could appoint them, yet they did not come. He sent a messenger to them again, and then they came. Rabbi Gamliel was the Nasi, he was the head of the Jewish people. When he sends a message, you come. Rabbi Gamliel then says to them, "I know why you didn't come the first time. Do you imagine that I'm granting you authority? And since you do not want to accept the honor that you didn't come when I sent for you? No, I'm not granting you authority. I'm granting you servitude, as it stated. And they spoke to him saying, if you will be a servant to this people today," this is in Melechim, Kings, "if you will be a servant to this people today." Who is a true Jewish king? A servant of the people. You ever see these people say to their politicians at these local meetings, "You work for me"? But that's not how the modern politicians, they don't work for you, they take from you. A Jewish king is supposed to be what? A humble, righteous, just servant of the people. The elders of Israel advised the new king Rehoboam, right? The son of King Solomon, who just came to the throne. The elders of Israel advised him to show kindness and serve the people by speaking good words and granting their request, which was a relief of heavy labor, promising that if he does, they will be his loyal subjects forever. This was a crucial moment that led to the kingdom being split into what? The kingdom of Judah and the kingdom of Israel, right? When the 10 tribes split. Why? What did Rehoboam do? After Solomon's death, his son Rehoboam became the king. The people asked for a heavy relief from burdens and taxes that Solomon imposed. The older, wiser counselors advised him and urged him to act as a servant to the people, offering gentle words and meeting their needs to secure their loyalty. He, in fact, rejected this advice in favor of his younger, harsher friends, leading to the northern tribes' rebellion and the division of the kingdom. The verse highlights a critical choice in leadership: to serve the people with humility and kindness for lasting loyalty, or to rule with harshness, risking division and rebellion. Very famous passage in Tractate Nida, which includes a comparison between the kings of the east and the west and King David, right? King David Melech. David Melech is quoted as saying before Hashem, "Master of the world, Am I not pious? All the kings of the east and west sit with all their pomp among their company, whereas my hands are soiled with menstruation blood, with the fetus and the placenta, in order to declare a woman clean for her husband. Meaning what? David HaMelech was a servant of the people. Where do we see this even more so? David is portrayed not merely as a warrior or a ruler, but as a sage, deeply engaged in the minutiae of the law. His hands, which other kings keep pristine for matters of state and grandeur, are symbolically soiled by the practical application of the Torah and the daily lives and needs of his subjects. The blood, the related items mentioned refer to the physical, real-world examinations necessary to determine a woman's ritual status, whether she's nida, impure, or tahor, thus permitting her to her husband. These laws require a careful examination and understanding of the different types of colors of blood. David HaMelech saying what? All I cared about was just being holy, was learning Torah, was being righteous. Look at me and contrast me to the different kings out there that eat and drink and be merry. The Talmud relates who exactly David HaMelech was. David HaMelech had a very famous general, Yoav ben Tzruya. They were what? They were like puzzle pieces. David was immersed in the study of Torah while Yoav went out to battle. The Gemara is very clear. If not for the merit of David's Torah, Yoav would not have been victorious in battle. And if not for Yoav's battles, David would not have been able to study Torah. A beautiful symbiotic relationship. Okay, my favorite part of every lecture, if there is one, is a textual oddity. You'll notice sometimes in the Torah that there's big letters and small letters, bigger than usual size and smaller than usual size. We did one with the vav, that the vav is literally broken. For those of you who know just how careful every single little drop of every letter has to be in the Torah. If anything is broken, it puzzles the whole Torah. The Torah is literally of no value. It's worthless. And the vav of Shalom, talking about when Pinchas kills Zimri, and he's given this bris Shalom from Hashem, the vav of Shalom is broken, because even though he did an act that brought peace, it still involved killing of the Nasi of Shevet Shimon. If you look at the very first letter of the Torah, Bereshis bara Elokim. The Beis, right, in Bereshis is oversized. What about Tzadi? Is there some unusual shape, size of a Tzadi? Yes, there is, of course. That's why we're talking about it. Devarim 32:4. Hatzor, right? Sora means rock. The Tzadi and Hatzor is big. What's the actual context of the pasuk? It says what? Again, Devarim, Deuteronomy 32:4. Hatzor tamim pa'alo kichol derachav mishpat kel emunah ve'ein avel tzaddik v'yashar hu. Right? Tzaddik v'yashar, we said this before. The deeds of the rock are perfect. Who are we talking about? Hashem. Who's the ultimate tzaddik? Hashem. Who do we emulate? Right? Hashem is righteous, so you too should be righteous. What do we do? We're supposed to emulate Hashem's ways. The things Hashem loves, we're supposed to love. The things Hashem hates, we're supposed to hate. End of story. Doesn't matter in modern times or the latest trends or, none of that matters. Soar. Hashem is our rock. Right? Remember what was it? Chevy like a rock. Who was that? Bob Seger song, right? Like a rock. The Chevy commercials, I think. Hatzor. Who's our rock? Hashem. And Hashem is what? Hatzor Tamim. Our rock is Tamim. Perfect. We have a perfect rock. Ve'ein avel tzaddik v'yasharhu. He is righteous and upright. So the Tsadi in this pasuk, which represents what? Hashem, is enlarged. To show what? Who's the ultimate tzaddik? Who do we shoot for, strive for to emulate? Only Hashem. And if so, I want to emulate this rabbi. Well, that rabbi wanted to emulate Hashem. Hashem is perfect. He is righteous and upright. He is a just and faithful God without any injustice or iniquity. Where is this pasuk? It's in Moshe's song, Hazinu. Devarim 32:4 describes Hashem as the rock, emphasizing his perfect, just, faithful, and righteous nature, a bedrock of reliability for Israel, even when we stray. The Hebrew term uses the powerful term tzor, rock, for Hashem, signifying his unchanging strength and truth, a core theme contrasting Israel's wavering with God's steadfastness. Right? We wavered in the desert. We challenged Hashem. We angered Hashem, highlighting his flawless works and ways. The Tzadi in Hatzor is often written as a large or enlarged letter in Torah scrolls, signifying God's perfect, unchanging, and foundational nature as the ultimate reliable source of justice and faithfulness, a core concept in Jewish tradition for understanding God's character, especially during mourning or times of doubt. Interestingly enough, when you go to a Jewish cemetery, you will never see, like an Orthodox cemetery with people that were Torah observant, you will never see flowers in the cemetery. You will only see rocks being put, because rock what? It's unchanging. It's there forever. Who's our rock? Hashem. Why is the Tzadi and Tzor enlarged? Because Hashem is our rock and he's eternal. And a tzaddik is what? He lives forever. That's the connection. Like a massive rock, God serves as the ultimate, immovable foundation for life and morality, a concept critical in Judaism. Tziduk hadin, right? Affirming Hashem's justice. The large Tsadi visually reinforces the idea that Hashem is the stable, reliable source of strength and truth, even when human circumstances seem chaotic or unjust. The enlarged letter draws attention to Hashem's steadfastness, perfection, and justice, as described in the verse. He is the rock. He is perfect. All his ways are justice, a God of truth without injustice. Righteous and upright is he. This was Moshe's farewell song, right? Parshas Hazinu, emphasizing Hashem's unchanging character and what? Reliability. Contrasting it with the fickle nature of humanity. The rock, tzor in Hebrew, is a common biblical metaphor for God as a source of salvation, strength, and eternal presence. Therefore, the enlarged Tzadi in Hatzor serves as a powerful visual cue, reminding readers and worshipers of Hashem's absolute, perfect, and enduring presence as the ultimate rock of our faith. Okay. Who is the only one that we remember? I mean, Noah's called a tzaddik in the Torah, but we don't sort of add that moniker to him like Avram Avinu, Yitzhak Avinu, Moshe Rabbeinu. Who's always associated with tzaddik, and then by association, Tzadi, the letter, Yosef, right? Yosef Tzaddik, the 11th of the 12 brothers, right? The one who went down to Egypt. This is Parshas V'yigash today. The whole parsha starts, Yehuda and Yosef, right? We have a Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David, right? Yehuda and Yosef have this climactic scene, which is like, the climax of all of the Torah. When Yosef finally reveals himself to his brother. He's always called Yosef a tzaddik. No other person, until later on, we have Shimon a tzaddik, right? It's called tzaddik. Why does Yosef earn this moniker? A fascinating, widely discussed point in Jewish tradition is that Yosef is uniquely and universally referred to by the appellation HaTzadik, the righteous one, by the sages. This is an incredibly rare distinction, as no other biblical figure, not even the patriarchs, Avram, Yitzhak, Yaakov, or Moshe, or David, or Aaron, or King Shlomo, carries this specific consistent title in rabbinic literature. Yosef is always called Yosef Tzaddik. The title Tzaddik translates to righteous, just, or pious. While many biblical figures are described as righteous in various verses, for instance, Noah literally is called Tzaddik, Yosef is the only one to whom the title is permanently affixed as part of his name throughout Jewish history and commentary. Again, always Yosef Tzaddik. Always. A defining name. Yosef's name in Jewish tradition is always followed by a tzaddik. Other major figures have descriptive titles, such as Avram Avinu, Moshe Rabbeinu, David HaMelech. But only Yosef has this moral attribute as a constant identifier. Again, like Zechariah did beautiful words about his grandfather at the beginning. Such beautiful things to remember. Yosef Tzadik. I mean, I would love, God willing, when I leave the world, hopefully at 120, that name would be, that, my family members would like to attach that to me, God willing. What more could you want than to be what? The tzaddik. The big tzaddi and soar, right? Hashem is the ultimate tzaddik. Who do we try to emulate Hashem? Why Yosef? Why not any other person has this appellation? Why specifically Yosef? The sages generally attribute Yosef's unique title to his exceptional moral fortitude and his unwavering commitment to his faith, even in the most challenging and tempting circumstances. He was literally in Egypt, which is the most disgusting and depraved culture of the ancient world. What are the key reasons? Resisting temptation. Potiphar's wife, right? Potiphar's wife was one of the most beautiful women that ever lived. She would change her outfit multiple times a day and entice him. The primary event leading to this title was his steadfast refusal to succumb to Potiphar's wife's advances, preserving his purity and the holy covenant, the bris, in a morally depraved environment, as explained in the Zohar. He became the foundation of the world, Yesod Olam, by connecting the spiritual and material realms, right? He funneled God's blessing into the physical world. He was literally the provider for the entire world. He was the mashbir. Always seeing and speaking about Hashem. Yosef saw God's hand in all events, even the betrayal by his brothers, enabling him to be non-judgmental, forgiving, and seeing the good in others, which is a core trait of the tzaddik. When Paro says, I heard you can interpret dreams. He said, no, I can't. Hashem can. Maybe Hashem will illuminate me to what your dream is. Always had Hashem on his mouth. Never took credit for anything. The brothers apologized. Hashem sent me here. It wasn't you. Hey guys, don't worry, no big deal. That's a tzaddik, sustaining the world. Like Noach, right? Noach sustained the world, right? When he was in the Teva, the ark, he sustained the world. He sustained all these animals for a whole year. Yosef's actions, interpreting the dreams, managing the famine, saving lives, literally sustaining the entire world. The entire world came to Egypt to buy bread, to buy wheat from utter devastation, earning him the title of one who sustains the world. And forgiveness and compassion, he ultimately forgave his brothers, transforming bitterness into love and compassion, showing that becoming a tzaddik is what? An ongoing, lifelong thing to strive for. It's important to differentiate how individuals are referred to within the strict biblical text itself, and how they are commonly known in later rabbinic tradition. Noach is explicitly called a tzaddik. However, in the vast body of rabbinic literature that developed over the centuries, it's only Yosef who has the quintessential title, HaTzadik. No one's saying Noach's not a tzaddik. But we don't call him Noach a tzaddik. We just call him Noach. Yosef is always called Yosef a tzaddik. And in conclusion, while the word righteous appears in the Tanakh to describe others, Yosef stands alone in Jewish religious thought as the only biblical personality consistently and universally identified by the definitive, permanent title of Yosef Tzadik. This unique appellation highlights his extraordinary moral strength, his role as the spiritual foundation of the world, and his ability to maintain his identity and righteousness in the face of extreme adversity and in the heart of an immoral society. And that will lead us to our ending. I learned something over Hanukkah that just blew my mind. I actually mentioned it in one of the Hanukkah episodes. Hanukkah was what? It was a few very, very righteous Jews, Kohanim, that could not tolerate Judaism being defiled, right? The Greece is known as Yavan, right? Yavan is Yud Vav Nun. Yud is like a small, like this, like the top of the Vav is like this, And then the final nun is like this. All three letters are straight, going from small, medium, large. That's Yavan. Very strange. Never noticed that before. Literally, the small yud, a little bit bigger vav, and then a bigger final nun. All straight up and down, going from smallest to biggest, right? That's Yavan. That's Greece. What happens if you put a Tsadi in front of Yavan? You get what? Sion, Zion, right? Isn't that interesting? You have Yavan. You have literally the arch nemesis of the Jewish people, the Greeks. Everything with Greece was what? You're the master of your own destiny. Everything is beauty and physicality, the Olympic Games, how your body looks, beauty, all of these things. The exact antithesis of what Judaism is. But all we have to do is take what? We take this Tsadi, we put it in front of the word Yavan, and all of a sudden you have Sion, Zion. Eliakim, another of the amazing 3,412,000,000,000,000, coincidences that you've mentioned in your lectures. What is so powerful about this that I chose this to, be the Mary Lou Retton dismount of this lecture? This is so powerful, people. Again, Yud is like here, Vav is here, and final nun is this. So all three letters just straight up and down. And then you have this bent Tsadi that represents Tzaddik. You stick it ahead of these letters, and you don't have Yavan anymore, you have Sion. You don't have Greece, you have Zion. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Why? What's the entire purpose of life? Did a whole lecture on the 4 reasons why the rabbis say we were created and what our mission is as Jews. One of them is what? To take the material, the physical, and to infuse it with holiness. How do we do that? Well, before this lecture, I filled my trusty Fenway Park Red Sox cup. And by the way, there won't be lectures for another week and a half. I'm taking my son to Boston. What did I do on this cup? Put water in it. And before I drank it, I made a blessing. So this ceased to become a cup with water in it. It became what? A vessel of holiness connecting me to what? To Hashem. I took the physical, there's nothing more physical than water, and I made it now what? Spiritual. I took the Yavan, I took physicality, I put the Sion, I put the Tzadi in front of it, right? I just made a blessing on it. And it did what? It elevated this to bind this water, this cup, to Hashem, to spirituality, to holiness. The visual straightness of the letters of Yavan is often connected to the concept of Greek philosophy and culture, which emphasized logic, human intellect, the physical, the material, as opposed to what? The more curved and complex and hidden aspect of what? Judaism, the Jewish people. The Yud, the smallest letter, represent a mere point or small vertical stroke, symbolizing a spark or initial wisdom of a divine point of origin. The Vav, this letter is a straight vertical line that can represent a conduit or an extension, linking the spiritual to the physical or extending the initial wisdom downwards. The final Nun, this letter is a long straight line that extends below the baseline of other letters. And certain interpretations, it represents the idea of intellect sinking deeper and deeper into the material world, becoming completely immersed, much like an object in quicksand. The straightness and verticality of these letters are thus seen not as mere coincidence of typography, but as an intentional design reflecting the essential nature of the cultural force they represent, a focus on the linear, the rational, and the physically evident. This contrasts sharply with the intricate curves and angles of the Hebrew alphabet, specifically the Tzadi, which embody what? Energies and ideas and spiritualities. So now what do we have? We have the Tzadi, which means what? Righteousness and justice. In front of this, what? Materialism. And we have what? This symbolizes the Jewish mission to infuse and sanctify the world, represented by Yavan, the material world, the physical world, with righteousness. Turning secular or Hellenistic elements into what? Something holy. What were the three things the Greeks wanted to take away from the Jewish people? The three things that make the Jewish people unique and special. Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, and Bris Milah. The three things that the Jewish people have that no other nation has. But what is Zion, right? What is Zion? We know the name. Oh, you're a Zionist. What is so special about Zion, right? In Hebrew, Zion means a sign or a landmark, originating as a specific hill in Yerushalayim, but evolving in Judaism to symbolize the spiritual heart of Israel, which is what? God's presence. The Jewish people as a unique, marked nation, chosen, and the eternal hope for what? Zion, Yerushalayim, as a place of Torah and redemption. It refers to the city of David, the Temple Mount, metaphorically to all of Israel, and the Jewish spiritual legacy, becoming central to prayer, identity, and the return to our land. What's the dwelling place of God? Where heaven and earth meets, right? Again, it was a specific hill in Yerushalayim, the site of King David's fortress, and later, the Temple Mount. We're called daughters of Zion, right? It's a personification of Yerushalayim and the Jewish people, lamenting exile and longing for return. It's a symbol of ultimate peace and justice and the universal dissemination of Hashem's word and Torah from where? From Jerusalem. By who? The Jewish people. Where do we see this? Yeshaya 2:3, Isaiah 2:3. For out of Zion shall the Torah come forth and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. Tehillim 137. By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat and wept when we remembered Zion. What's our goal in life? To literally be the Tzadi of the Yavan, right? To take the Bechira. What do we say in Devarim? What did Hashem have in his Torah that Moshe said to the Jewish people right before he died? I set before you life and death. Meaning what? All your life, it's a fork. Every single second of your life is a fork in the road. Fork in the road. Hashem sets before you life and death, choosing a righteous path or a not righteous path. Do you want to live your whole life as Yavan? Everything is materialism. Got to get the new Gucci bag. Got to get the new, high-end clothes that have the Louis the 14 logo on it so everyone knows that I'm rich. Or what? Do you put the Tzion? Do you put the Tzadi ahead of it? To make what? It's just clothes, right? When do I use these clothes for spiritual purposes? On Shabbos. We're supposed to dress extra nice on Shabbos. Apex Custom, they gave me this beautiful suit that I wear in every single one of my lectures, right? apexcustom.com with a K. Why do they do that? So that they could have a part in what? So that every single lecture I can look respectable. It's okay to look good on the outside. But what? For a reason. I set before you life and death. Part of Moshe's final address to the Bnei Yisrael, urging them to choose life, blessing, and obedience to Hashem's Torah, rather than death and curses and turning away and focusing their entire life on what? Materialism, physicality. We only have one aspect of our life that we have control over. And I mentioned this in basically every single episode, and this is how we're going to end. There are two paths we can take in life. We can take the Yavan path, the straight up and down path. Everything is a means to an end. I have to work so I can get money, so I can get the car, so I can, have a nicer car than my friend. Have to, paint my house because my neighbor just painted my house and it's going to look like I'm successful. Means to an end. I'm the master of my own domain. Everything is straight. I am the master of my own domain. I ultimately, choose my own destiny. I choose if I'm rich. I choose if I'm healthy. I choose. And we know as Jews, all of that is 100% factually wrong. That is sheker. That is a total lie. What are we supposed to do in life? We are supposed to humble ourselves. We are supposed to be that bent tzaddi that we put before the Yavan, Before that Yud, Vav, and final Nun, to make what? Sion. What is Sion? Sion is that connection. It's that beautiful, righteous connection. It's the ultimate redemption of the Jewish people. It's the land of Israel, merged with the Torah to have this spectacular beacon of shining light that shines throughout the world. And what is the only thing in our control? Sof davar kol nishma es Elokim yora v'es mitzvosav shemor kizeh kol ha'adam. Shlomo Melech says, the end of the matter, meaning I'm going to sum up life for you. Shlomo Melech says the wisest person that ever lived. He's going to sum up the entire matter of life. The end of the matter, everything having been heard, is what? Fear Hashem and observe His commandments. For this is the entire man. And then what does he say after that? Ki es kol ma'aseh Elokim yavi v'mishpat al kol nelam im tov v'im ra. For every deed, every single second of your life, God is going to judge you, right? God is what? Tzaddik, right? Justice, divine, righteous justice. For every single thing that you've ever done, there'll either be a reward or a punishment. The goal is what? Stop living life as a yavan, as everything is material. The Netflix, have to buy the new clothes, have to get the new updated phone. Everything is just physical, material. And do what? Be the Tsadi. Put that spirituality, that humbleness, that servitude, that gracious, humbling servitude to Hashem, and understand that all your blessing comes from Hashem. Your wisdom comes from Hashem. All your attributes come from Hashem. And to do what? To spend the rest of your life with the only thing that's in your control. That is the Bechira, to follow Hashem's path every second of every single day. I want to thank my dear sponsor, and I want to wish everybody a wonderful, wonderful day and a good Shabbos. And may this be an aliyah for the neshama of Zachariah's grandfather, Yitzchak Rachamin ben Ezra Simcha, and also for the holy Shinova Rav, whose yahrzeit is today. Wishing everybody a wonderful, wonderful day.